Hello, I'm Eleanor Asplin, Marketing Manager for the Business and Management booklist at Sage. I'm a white cisgender woman with light brown hair, brown eyes, and I'm wearing a black top. My pronouns are she/her. I'm joined by Amy Douglas, who is supporting us on the back end of the webinar. I'm delighted to be introducing this webinar today, titled Teaching Digital Business in the AI Era with Dr. Annmarie Hanlon. A bit about Sage before we get started. Sage is a global independent publisher at the forefront of research and scholarship. Our business management textbooks, journals, and learning resources unite theory and practice, offering a full breadth of subject coverage in a diverse range of formats and delivery options to support classroom and research needs. To go over some housekeeping, this webinar is being recorded. It will be available to watch on our Sage YouTube channel after the event, and you'll also receive a link to the recording via email. Closed captions are available, so please do turn those on if you would find them useful. We have switched off the cameras and muted the microphones for all participants except the presenters, just so everyone can enjoy the webinar without any background noise. The chat box also won't be available during this session. There is a Q&A at the end of the discussion, so please do add your questions via the Q&A function throughout the webinar and at the end. Questions were also submitted ahead of time, so if you ask a question via the registration form, Annmarie will aim to answer these during the webinar. Any we don't get time to get to, and we will aim to answer after the event, and they will be circulated to you via email. Today's webinar will explore the integration of ethical AI in marketing education and how digital disruption is driving transformative change. And we will also be drawing on her most recent book, Digital Marketing, the third edition of which is available at the end of this month. If you haven't ordered your copy yet, you can get 25% off from sagepub.co.uk with the code on the screen. Either scan the QR code or visit the URL directly to buy your copy or order your inspection copy. Unfortunately, this code will not work in the US and Canada. From June 2025, digital marketing will also be available in Sage Catalyst outside the US and Canada, which offers university-wide unlimited access to a collection of titles through an institution's library. Finally, I would just like you to introduce you to our speaker, Dr. Annmarie Hanlon. Annmarie Hanlon's pronouns are she/her. She's the course director of MSc Marketing and Leadership at Cranfield University, and prior to joining academia, worked in consultancy for 25 years. As an early adopter of online marketing, she has led digital strategy and planning projects in sectors across Europe, including legal and financial, software and IT, and health and manufacturing. Her textbooks have been used in courses in nearly 30 countries by over 100 universities. So without further ado, I'd like to hand over to Annmarie for the discussion.
Thank you so much, Eleanor. What a fabulous introduction. You're all very welcome to this session on teaching digital marketing in the AI era. We'd moved to a focus on digital, not just traditional marketing, and suddenly AI has crept into every part of digital marketing. In this session, I shall explain more about how you can integrate AI into marketing education. The session is being recorded and will be available for you afterwards. I will cover how digital disruption is driving change, also the role of AI and AI-generated content, and how to integrate this into teaching marketing. We'll consider the benefits and downsides and ethical issues. And finally, I will share how to stay ahead. Let's start by looking at the landscape. The process of digital transformation involves three progressive phases: digitization, digitalization, and transformation. Digitization involves converting analog processes to digital systems. Digitalization involves technological changes in some departments in business, not changing the whole business, whereas transformation is a bigger step and takes the changes from one or two processes in one or two departments across the entire organization. This can take years to achieve. So an example of digitization is where you take a process that would typically be a paper-based item and make it digital. Digitalize is where you then introduce that further in a department, and the transformation is when it rolls out across an entire organization. So what's driving this? Well, the factors in digital marketing disruption and transformation have included customers as co-creators. For example, suddenly we have customers acting as sales representatives, where they're unboxing, they're sharing products, maybe they're leaving positive or negative reviews. And we've also seen how data capture has changed in a digital environment. We know so much more about customers. For example, we can see how many visitors checked a web page, and from this, how many converted, and whether that was a conversion such as adding something to a shopping cart or providing data, whether it was an email address or signing up for a newsletter. And much of this has come about through technology convergence, which has led to additional advantages for businesses, which I'll come on to later. Looking at disruptive digital innovation, a good example of this is AI, which has moved at speed and we're considering in this section. And just to put that speed into context, when we consider how long it's taken various organizations to gain 1 million users, Netflix managed this in 3.5 years, which at the time was very impressive. Yet ChatGPT took just 5 days, and that's an indicator of why it became a digital disruptor and captured our attention. I remember talking to colleagues when ChatGPT had just been launched, and the discussion was around Google having to move fast and release Bard, which has obviously since been rebranded as Gemini, and they were releasing it much ahead of schedule. Moving that forward meant it wasn't actually fully ready to launch. And this meant much of the typical beta testing or consumer testing took place in a live environment and created issues. But overall, we can say that AI facilitates technology convergence. And as a factor in digital marketing disruption and transformation, it mixes two or more technologies. And this has led to much better websites, which have greater utility for us. If you're trying to find a place and they've added mapping data to their website, you may get real-time updates or recommendations for better routes. Or as marketers, where we have the ability to take the data captured and overlay this with past customer behavior to predict future actions. What does this mean in practice? Well, it's led to much better analysis of data responses, and it means we can send more timely content, whether that's an email being sent to someone, offering them a particular product offer for a limited time period because we know their behavior, or it may be putting an advert in front of them, in front of many different people, different forms of the adverts that have been generated through AI or other promotions, and doing that at the right time. So, having looked at the context, let's look at AI in digital marketing. And I think for me, one of the areas where many marketing people have become excited is the use of AI to create content. And the tables you can see that I put into the slides, they're all taken from the textbook. If you register online with Sage, you can get a copy of the slides per chapter, which include all those tables as well. Traditionally, content was created by brands, and it was often outsourced to agencies, whether that was a team of copywriters or full service ad agencies. And then we've had celebrities who've always endorsed products in exchange for a reward, whether that's an actual payment or it's a reward in terms of products. And we've seen over the last few years the move to more formally recognized influencers. And this has also changed with AI because our influencers are not just human, they may be virtual, offering a similar service. And customers and users might also create our content for us. And not all of that is wanted or planned. But fundamentally, the latest storyteller is the AI app that can create or curate content, pulling together different articles from different spaces and release that onto websites. And there are a range of tools that can be used for this. And again, those mentioned in the book I'm showing and sharing with you here on the screen. And these can create text or image or audio or video or a blend of all of these. Many of the tools require registration, even when they are free, but many of them, and this takes us into an interesting aspect of AI tools, are available via subscription. And we've seen this growth of the subscription model. We're nearly using different tools to do different things. And I know a couple of organizations that within text creation or audio creation, they're using Speechify. And this is taking written content and you select the voice that you want to read out the content, and you might edit the text first, but it means that you're providing potential content for podcasts or people who can't necessarily access online visual content. But with all these different tools, the market is still fragmented. And in the future, and by the future, I'm talking about this year, next year, the year after, that's likely to change as bigger players buy up the best available tools and incorporate them into a single package. And there's undoubtedly going to be a large subscription attached to this. And we haven't yet seen any of these AI tools providing free access for teachers yet. In terms of the subscriptions and what do they cost, it ranges from $10, euros, or pounds per month. But if you multiply the tools that you need by the subscriptions, it does soon increase. Having looked at some of those tools and how AI can be used in marketing content creation, let's consider how you can integrate AI into your marketing classes. Well, emerging research from, for example, Dr. Chana Gonsalves at King's Business School, her research I would highly recommend. She's been looking at AI and pedagogy in quite a big way. And early research has shown that students evaluate generative AI, which may actually assist them with critical thinking. In this way, they're looking at the different tools and they're actually doing a comparative evaluation to look at which tool works best. But at the same time, as you would expect, other research indicates dependency on AI to do assignments and a cognitive offloading process where some students are perhaps thinking AI will do all the work for me. But as educators, you're very wise. You have more knowledge, more life experience, and you've seen many trends come and go over time. So my strategy is to integrate AI into your marketing classes, into your teaching classes, and to consider it as a pedagogic tool. And you can do this by adopting a practical approach. And this helps students with employability if they can try, test, and learn different tools. And if you get awkward questions where students are saying, what tools should we use? Push it back to the students and say, you find out. Let them create a refined question, or in ChatGPT language, a prompt, which is effectively a question string. Allow them to use ChatGPT to discover potential solutions and then take it back into the class as a discussion. That serves several purposes. It brings AI tools out into the open, so there's less deniability about, oh, we're not using it. It highlights their flaws and whether they include misinformation or disinformation. Misinformation is what ChatGPT calls hallucinations, which is basically incorrect assumptions that are being made, resulting in fake content, incorrect content. Disinformation is more where someone has added content that is, and they are absolutely aware that it's erroneous, and they're trying to move a conversation to one or other polar extreme. By doing this, it enables students to get better at asking questions. It enables them to learn how to refine the prompts that they're asking, that they're using, and that leads to better evaluation of the tools and greater critical thinking. When you've done this, encourage students to document or report back on their findings. And one surprise I've discovered in my classes is students find there's a lot more work involved in using AI. And you can formalize the process and add explicit declarations to submitted work so that students share what they have used, in which situations, and to do what. So I mentioned pushing questions back to students. The next 3 slides show questions that you can ask students. I think to start, ask them to assess the AI tools that they use. Dig deeper and explore which products provide the greatest value, whatever value means in that context, and why. And then ask them to examine the benefits and challenges of these tools. A great in-class practical exercise that can be extended to homework or even a group assignment is to create content with AI. Again, you don't need to do the research. You don't even need to know what the tools are. You push that back to the students. You get them to do the research, find an AI tool that's free to use, and then when they've identified that tool, ask them to create some content. That could be an advert, a social media post, or a short video reel. The deeper learning element is an evaluation where they compare the results in class and critically think about the process with their classmates. What worked well? What didn't work well? Which tools would they recommend? And why is this? And another factor that we often in digital marketing modules ask students to do is where we ask them to create a persona. Ask them to use AI tools to create a digital persona. Again, they need to find the relevant tools. They should evaluate the strengths and weaknesses of the chosen tool and maybe recommend enhancements to the persona, perhaps where there were elements missing or less relevant, or perhaps where bias was incorporated. Very often, when you ask AI tools to create a persona for you, they always look like a fashion model. Um, they can often be very tall, blonde with blue eyes and white. So you ask them, how do they address the bias that took place? And another exercise is to evaluate virtual influencers. For example, in the book, I've mentioned the virtual influencers, Ludu Magalu or Lil Miguela, who are actually both created by agencies and they're gaining work with and for brands. Ask the students to find virtual influencers that perhaps they may follow and then evaluate them. Depending on the student level, this can be extended to whether they consider the evaluation from a theoretical standpoint or simply assessing the characteristics. And it can be extended to examine whether they understand if the customers or the fans who are following these influencers are aware of whether or not they're real, and actually if that matters or not. Moving to other elements of digital marketing, you can ask students to evaluate AI tools for keyword generation. In this case, it's a comparison demonstrating the actual difference between different AI tools. They can explore a web page, such as your university web page or a favorite brand, and then add the prompt. That's the question. What are the top keywords for this web page? That enables them to assess the difference between the responses from the different tools and share with classmates and write up. And I would also suggest an element of best practice is for students to share the prompt, the question string, in an appendix of the report they're creating. And another useful activity within the classroom is to conduct a customer journey. And in case you're concerned about which tools to use in doing this, the QR code in the top right-hand corner includes the prompt I added to ChatGPT to ask, what are the best free tools to create an online customer journey? We've looked at the application of AI and how it can be used in class. Let's examine some of the benefits and the downsides. First, some of the benefits. These focus on processes to automate tasks, optimize processes, conduct pre-work, and access data. It's often about performing basic or laborious tasks. And then we come to the downsides, which are often about misuse, which can lead to discrimination and, as I mentioned, misinformation. And this can be because the guidelines are fragmented. There's no one piece of legislation globally that covers this. The EU has created the AI Act, which has rules to foster trustworthy AI in Europe. The UK is relying on principles for businesses to adopt. But other challenges are the time for the systems to learn what works, and we still need human intervention to create the instructions, the prompts, the search strings to start with. So let's look at AI ethics in teaching, because there were a number of questions in this area. So in a helpful sense, AI is being used in classrooms in some countries. Overtly, AI supports new teachers with less knowledge, where there are big class sizes. It can also fill gaps in resources, as these examples show. And these are taken from an ethical insight section in the textbook. And although it's not an ideal situation, it's where resources are limited and they don't have sufficient trained teachers. But how can students usefully use AI in the classroom? Well, to enhance their skills rather than just as a knowledge seeking tool for group projects. And group projects for students can be, especially students in the first or second year of university, they can still be figuring out how these groups work. Using an AI note taker for a group project could be part of an assignment where the students add the script to an appendix to show how well or otherwise group meetings were conducted. And AI has a place for the initial group work, perhaps as a search tool. And while we don't see Google being replaced as a search tool, it's going to supplement search with AI to provide greater context and more detailed responses. Because there are generations starting now who use ChatGPT or Gemini or other tools to actually as their search engine rather than Google. But there are understandably ethical challenges with AI, and it's really how much the student is used and for what purposes, whether or not the usage was declared, and your university's policy on AI. It's really important students understand that the results from AI based on that big data may represent plagiarism. Imagine if several students from the same university are asking the same questions for an assignment. They may end up providing the same material from each other. And several of you asked ahead of this session about AI declarations. So I asked ChatGPT to give me examples of use of AI declarations from universities. When the list was provided, I asked Chat to compare the declarations, and then I asked it to put this into a table for me. You can see the results that are on screen, and the QR code again shares the prompt. So you can see the questions I asked and what I got back. Now, these declarations focus on specific areas, namely transparency, where AI is permitted, and how it applies to studies, and good practice, as I've mentioned earlier. is to ask students for a copy of the prompt and get them to add this to an appendix in the report. Finally, let's look at a few ways to stay ahead. Well, I use AI is moving at such speed. The tool that I use most often is AI Explorer, and that lists the main tools, it sorts them by category, and you can sort by free and paid for. For the latest tech news, any breaking AI tools, TechCrunch is my go-to website. And think about the big issues on AI, the partnership on AI, it involves companies like Google, Amazon, Apple. It shares blog articles, resources, and other emerging information. And for you as educators teaching marketing, there are extra resources on the Sage digital marketing portal. There's a tutor's manual. There's a selection of pedagogic features that you can pick and choose depending on your student level. And I've also created some lesson plans for 1 and 2 hour sessions. There are slide decks for each chapter that contain all the figures and tables from the book, as well as learning objectives and a summary. And the slides you can download as PowerPoints. They're all plain, so you can drag and drop them into your university's standard template. And to make sure they're doing the work, there's a test bank of 10 multiple choice questions for each chapter. I hope you found that useful today. We've explored how digital disruption is driving change, the role of AI as a digital disruptor, ways that you can integrate AI into your marketing teaching, and the benefits and the downsides, along with the ethical issues to consider. If you want to connect with me, please send me a LinkedIn invite, or if you use Blue Sky, please follow and I shall follow you back. If you're new to Blue Sky, which is a lot like Twitter used to be, with a growing academic network, it's a nicer, friendlier place. You might find this starter pack that I created helpful. The starter pack is a list of academics in our field that are using Blue Sky. You can scan the QR code to access it. If you are using Blue Sky and you're not on the list, let me know and I will add you. Thank you so much for your time today. I will hand back to Eleanor to address any questions that may have arisen. Thank you.
Thank you, Annmarie. That really was just a fascinating insight into teaching digital marketing, particularly in a world that is so drastically impacted by that digital disruption that you've been discussing. The tips you've obviously been sharing lead quite nicely into the Q&A part of our webinar. So a reminder to everyone to add your questions now via the Q&A function. And while we wait for some questions to come in, we did have those questions submitted in advance that I'll run through some of those now. Some of those were answered in your presentation. And as I said, any we don't get to in the next part of the webinar, we will aim to answer after the event and circulate those to you. So I wanted to start with a question that seems quite timely, just because it was International Women's Day earlier this month. So how can women entrepreneurs implement AI in growing their SMEs?
It's a really, really good question. And women often have roles, certainly in academia, women have more admin roles than perhaps some male colleagues. But you can think of AI as your assistant, your digital sidekick, and get them to do some of the work for you. So, for example, if you're in a meeting with a client, if female entrepreneurs are in meetings with clients and the meeting is on Zoom or on Teams, use the transcript function so that you don't need to type up the notes afterwards, and you can then go through and do a quick edit. There may also be some other elements they can use to do background research. If I'm doing background research into most competitors in the field, I might use Google's Gemini rather than chat. Gemini is a little bit more reliable. It won't provide students with academic references at this time because they don't want to pay the copyright fees that obviously our universities have access to. but consider using Gemini. And again, all those elements I just mentioned, for example, where I was looking at the AI declarations within universities, I kept asking ChatGPT in that example for more. I asked for a list, I asked them to sort the list, I asked them to put it into a table. I could have asked, and then I can download the table. I could have asked them for a PowerPoint as well. So think about AI as your digital assistant and use it in that way just to make life easier.
Thank you. I think that also links to another question focused around the SME angle. So given your extensive consultancy experience, what do you think are the key hindrances to adopting AI in SMEs?
It's really challenging. SMEs typically have smaller budgets and less resources. So they have fewer people and they have smaller amounts of money. I would stick to maybe one or two tools and use them well, rather than trying to use every single tool. And I think some training would be useful. But the other thing I would also suggest is there are universities all over the world that are where the students are looking for internship opportunities. So perhaps partner with a local university to see if students there can help and support so they get some experience working within an organisation and at the same time the SMEs get a benefit.
Okay, yeah, that's interesting because I think we've also just had a question come in that is again linked and might be answered by your last response. So how much should we rely on AI generated customer journeys and marketing plans for our SMEs?
Oh, I would take it with a big pinch of salt. I was speaking to a colleague recently about some research we'd commercial sort of research that we just examined. You have to then sense check it. So you have to imagine that the work is being done maybe by a 14 or a 15-year-old person, and then you have to check it. You have to check the homework to see how accurate it is, because it will give you that broad top line, but it may not be completely accurate. And again, within students, this is where they can get the opportunity for greater critical evaluation by going back and saying, well, how accurate is this? How realistic is this? Because we know Chat GPT hallucinates by making up and inventing references. So if you've written a textbook on something, or if you've spoken a lot about an area, it will create a textbook that you've written that you didn't write. Some of the web links it provides are out of date. So you go back and you refine the prompt, and keep going back and refining the question. And again, that's a really great skill for students. And there's an awful lot of AI training courses out there that are just about prompt writing. You can do that in class with your students by getting them to refine, refine, refine. And it means when they're coming to, say, for example, a thesis module or having to do some research, they're already practiced at better refining questions.
Yeah, and I think that's really interesting. I think that probably also answers one of the other questions we've had, that was how to adapt or incorporate our AI tools in teaching and assignments to ensure that students still develop key skills such as critical thinking. So would that be your answer, that it's asking them to do that prompt work
Yes, do
themselves?
do the prompt work, but evaluate what they've done. And I would have this standard declaration at the beginning that says, this assignment has used AI, the following AI tools to do the following elements. And then I would have a reflection at the end of the assignment. I would allow, depending on how long the assignment is, 2, 3, 500 words, a reflection about the application of AI and where it actually enhanced the work and where it was actually less useful. So they are questioning, they're actively questioning tools that they're using rather than just taking for granted that actually it's all true and accurate.
Yeah, yeah, and I think that nicely again links into another question. Um, that is linked to that teaching and developing student skills piece. So can you share some good ideas to break up lectures so that students work in small teams or even move around the class? I know you've got some great pedagogy in your book that might help with that.
Yeah, I would suggest, again, in the book, I've got smartphone 60 seconds and I've got digital tools, and they are designed specifically for that. We all know students come into the classroom with their mobiles. This makes them put their mobiles, their cell phones onto the desk rather than hiding them and pretending they're not reading a WhatsApp message. So it makes them actively use their mobile phone to actually look for and use specific tools, and then in groups discuss what they found. The digital tools is an application. So smartphone 60 seconds makes them search for something, a particular activity. The digital tools gets them to use and apply a specific tool. Again, they can do those in groups. And the book also has activities. There's three activities embedded into each chapter before the activities at the end of the chapter. And those three activities are all designed as group work to get them up, moving around and doing something.
Yeah, great. And then there's also a question about how the pedagogy of your book helps support that focus on improving employability through our AI. I know you touched on that in your presentation about how the integration of AI in teaching can really help boost that employability for students.
Yes, and it's so important. And so many jobs in the future will just demand a basic understanding of AI or a basic use of AI in some shape or form. All of these elements give the students those opportunities to do that. But there's also at the beginning of the text professional skills that the students gain. And after the learning objectives, there's 2 professional skills in each chapter that the students should acquire at the end of that by applying the knowledge in the book, translating it to skills, and then enhancing their behaviour.
Great, thank you. We did also have a couple of questions about what academic careers might look like in the AI era. I know in your presentation you suggested AI is being used to supplement where there's not enough teachers to fill a need, so that's obviously a benefit. But with advancements in technology, is there also a risk to lecturers' careers when entering academia at a lower level?
It's a really excellent question. Another great question. Typically, technology creates more jobs than it replaces. Technology always through history, has always created more jobs than it replaces. So there's a fear it will replace jobs. However, if we can use it to do the basic tasks, then we can do more interesting work. So if we can, as lecturers, get AI to do more of our admin, whether that's many student emails that have come through with the same question, and using Microsoft Copilot, and if you're a Microsoft house, and Google, if you're a Google house, they have similar tools, but to realize that it's all the same question and to fabricate a response for that, whatever that response is. So I don't see AI replacing teachers in the classroom. I know it's being used in a couple of countries, but these are countries where they don't have the skills, they've got big student numbers, and they're being overwhelmed with the teaching that is required. So it's being used as a supplement. In both cases, there's still a teacher present to actually to guide the AI along the journey.
Thank you. And then the next one is linked to that idea that careers around digital marketing are changing rather than being replaced. So do you think AI will significantly replace some of the more creative aspects of digital marketing?
Another brilliant question. So lots of people were worried about the content, and we don't need copywriters anymore. We can get AI to do it for us. The copy tends to be really bland. And at some point in time, Google will penalize AI created content because it will be able to recognize what's been created by AI and what's been created by an individual. It's interesting. When an individual creates content, it creates the content with some heart and with some soul. AI doesn't do that yet. I mean, I was at an author's presentation before Christmas where a very well-known author, Joanne Harris, who writes fiction, and she wrote the best-selling book Chocolat, which became an award-winning film. And she said that the top 100 books on self-published books on Amazon were all written by AI. However, they may be the top 100 because they'd all been reviewed by AI, where lots of rubbish reviewers, they've reviewed one book and they just say, this is a great book. I enjoyed reading this book. This book was great fun. I kept turning every page on the book. So there was no depth or detail to it. And that can soon be spotted. And at some point that will disappear. I know AI is being used for image generation, and it will do it to a certain degree, but it does include bias, and a lot of it looks like it came from the set of a science fiction film. So it's good. It's improving for some basic content. It may be there, but it won't replace that person who has been trained for years in the art of copywriting or has been trained in image generation. They may supervise it and use it for brainstorming ideas and take it and develop it from there. But again, it's like the 14 or 15-year-old creating some material for you that you need to edit afterwards.
Yeah, thank you. So we've had another comment come through on the chats that says, I use Perplexity AI for learners and show them how to use it for research. I then get them to reference the footnote articles links rather than Perplexity AI itself, as they found that learners struggle to reference AI effectively. Do you have any thoughts on this?
I think you're following best practice. All I would add to that is I would add in that Perplexity was used as the tool for generating the sources and for the information that came up. Um, Referencing AI is the same, although I haven't referenced it in my presentation today. It's the same as referencing any website. The difference will be to add in the search string that was asked. And if you consider the search string to be like the title of the journal or the textbook, the search string is that title. And that would be the final, and that the search string can be quite long. So something to bear in mind. But again, I would ask them to put an end note or a reflexive piece at the end of the work that explains what they used, why, and where.
Great. And then linked to that piece, somebody else has a tools-based question. So they've said, have you heard of and or used moxylearn.ai? And if so, have you heard how or whether students are using it? And what's your professional opinion about it from a teaching perspective?
It's a new one on me. Haven't heard of it. Um, haven't used it. If students are using it, I would ask them. Would be my answer. One tool students do use a lot is called POE, POE, and they use that because it will compare. They will put in one search string and it will search more tools. But that tends to be master's students who are using that, not first year undergraduate.
Yeah, I think it just shows how many tools are coming out at such a rapid pace.
Yes,
Just so
it
many out there.
does. It does. And that's where that tool that I mentioned that I use, or that website I use, AI Explorer, is very useful because on that you can go in there and you can have a look and see what's available and where.
Yeah, yeah, I think that's very useful. So I think we had another question. Somebody said they're very grateful for your presentation. I was wondering if you see any differences in terms of curriculum design for undergraduate and postgraduate marketing classes involving AI.
It's a really excellent question. I think within undergraduate classes, it's about introducing the use. So you don't get that cognitive offload where they're just sort of thinking, I'll get AI to do my essay for me. I won't bother. But introducing them to the notion of plagiarism and ethics. I think ethics in our everyday life will become more important, and explaining that if they're just going to do this using AI, they may get into plagiarism, and at that point they may be asked to leave the university without a reference, and this impacts their whole future life. And I think many students are slightly more careful about some things they share on social media, in so much as they might have a locked Instagram account, or they might use a pseudonym for TikTok so that it can't be attached to them later. In the same way, I think it's understanding the consequences of potentially relying on AI as a tool in those early years. And I think that's the key thing. I think at the postgrad level, it may be using it as an assistant, but with full declaration. So potentially using it to refine those prompts, to look at it, to do that better evaluation, and actually bring in to the curriculum, bring in tools to the curriculum. I'm always nervous about saying bring in that name of tool, just in case it's free at the moment, but in 6 months' time it decides to charge. And so I would keep it at that top level and say introduce the AI tool, or utilize the AI tool introduced in class, and do it that way around. But I think there's two levels. I think at that younger level, it's about understanding the ethical issues and the impact it could have on their future careers, their future roles, what they really want to do. I think at the postgrad level, it's about using it critically and intelligently.
And linked to that piece about having different things for different levels. Somebody has said, what's your take on declarations for dissertations? So obviously you've discussed declarations institution-wide, but is there
Yeah.
evidence that universities require specific declarations for those dissertations?
It's a real challenge with dissertations, because how much did the AI do and how much did the individual do? And then if the dissertation is going to be used for a paper afterwards, and if it's found out that most of this was created on AI, both the academic and the student submitting have reputational damage there. I think this is about a much more coherent briefing about the use of AI when dissertations are being introduced before they start or maybe class one, and saying, you can use it, there are risks attached to it, and you need to be cautious of an over dependence. I mean, there are some AI tools such as Grammarly, and many people have this and they don't even think about it as an AI tool, but it is doing gentle rewrites. And there are many people, um, many academic colleagues I know, that would use that to refine their academic writing before submitting a paper. So it's also that continuum of where are you using the AI? And I think using Grammarly to sense check and to do those is at that acceptable level. I think to brainstorm how much of that is then developed for the literature review piece, and that's where we need to be a little bit careful.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think then taking it back to the non necessarily academic perspective, but somebody said from a customer perspective, how do you think using AI in marketing communications, ads, or campaigns influence their message's credibility in the customer's eyes? We need to disclose it to customers according to the EU Act.
Yeah, and I would absolutely disclose it, regardless of the EU Act or not. I would disclose it at every time. But I would also do the reverse. I would also, if an ad was created without AI, I would say, this was, no AI was used to create this. And I think we'll start to see that appearing more often. So, a declaration or a small line, the way we had influencers using hashtag promoted, hashtag sponsored, hashtag ad, hashtag no AI, or created without AI. And because I think, yes, if it's just created using AI and if it goes wrong, you've got the authenticity and the credibility, brand reputation, all at risk for an organization. And that's where it can go very wrong.
Yeah, definitely. So we've had another question that says, would you recommend using AI for evaluation of student reports, coursework and theses? And if not, why not? What are the possible impacts of using this as a tool?
It's a really hot topic. So I have academic colleagues who are exploring using AI to do marking. And it, again, depends on the university's protocols, whether that's permitted or not permitted. And then whether students might en masse complain that AI marked my essay, and therefore I didn't get the grade that I should have got. So I think it depends very much on your AI policy within your university. It can be a very efficient way of marking, for example, first year papers at if they don't count towards the final degree. and where it's AI was assisted, and then a statistical sample in the same way you would use for moderation would checked just to see where the AI marking was going. And obviously you'd still have to train it and let it know what good looked like. So there is that involved. For a thesis, I mean, interestingly, I use Mendeley as my referencing software, and Mendeley is now providing me with a super quick summary. And I can ask Mendeley lots of questions, summarize the article, provide the top, what theory is used, what this is used, what that is used. So it can save some reading time, but typically we, as academics, we read really quickly and we read a lot of material. So it may save some time there. But again, it goes back to what's the policy within your organization?
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting point about AI being used increasingly in various tools where it wasn't before. Um, Somebody has said, I would like to ask you to recommend a comprehensive simulation tool for training the entire digital campaign process from planning to measurement, ideally also in connection with e-commerce.
Okay, a digital simulation tool. The one that I'm aware of that is on the way, and I think if there's any volunteers that want to get involved with this, perhaps contact Eleanor about this afterwards. Hubro Simulations, which is one of the top leading simulation tools. It was so good, Sage bought it. So Sage, the publishers, bought it. So declaration of interest there. They're in the process of finalizing a digital tool that does exactly what you've just said, and they'd welcome universities that want to road test this and explore it further. But there isn't another one I'm aware of. I'm fairly sure it will be the first when it's released.
Yeah, I think I was hoping you'd say that.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's
Well, it
great
is
that it's
actually,
on
it
its
is
way.
genuinely, it's the only one I'm aware of. There isn't one so far. And I've been helping the Hubro team with things, and I've introduced them to a couple of universities to use this. But we have talked about, specifically the customer journey, the campaigns, where does the e-commerce bits and pieces fall in and fall out, and how it could be used. So it will be a really useful tool in the class with some longevity as well. So yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and thank you to the person that asked that, and we'll make sure to share some more information about it in the follow-up email. Um, we've just had another question come through that says, is using AI with human loop, is that a problem for evaluation?
In what way? I mean, I just okay. So the person means using AI with the human in the loop and going back. So if I understand what you're talking about there, you're talking about um, involving the human to ask the questions and to do those things. It's still using AI, and as long as it's declared, I think that's fine. Most AI always, I can't think of AI that doesn't need a human in the loop at some stage or form, whether it's the beginning for setting the prompt, the instruction, the question, or whether it's refining later on. A human in the loop is always required. Um, until we get the godlike AI, which we were promised, I think various people promised we'd have it last year, this year, it's still some years off. Um, there's an AI tool that's used I'm just thinking about where it is. In the US, it's used for student onboarding, where they may have several thousands of students going onto campus, and it's used instead of saying to students, read the program manual. Read the program manual that will tell you all about the program, because we know students they're not always so keen to read unless there's pictures and other things in there. And instead, what this does is it creates an avatar in the student's likeness. So it's matched to the student's likeness. And they can ask questions like, how do I find this? How do I find that? And at the end, the avatar has been trained on facial expressions. So whether the student's looking puzzled or whether they're looking happy, and then asking if they need more information or not at the end. And if they do, then it will go through and bring a human into the loop for that as well.
Great, thank you. Hopefully that did answer the question. And then we've got another one that says, you mentioned that the integration of AI into teaching will help with students' employability in your presentation. So how does the pedagogy of your book help support this focus on improving employability through AI?
I think with the activities, the questions, uh, the different pedagogic features from the digital tools, it gives them experience of using a particular thing, and then they can write it up afterwards, and then ideally add that into their LinkedIn profile and build up the number of tools that they're using. In the same way, some years ago, we used to say to people, you must be able to use Microsoft Word and PowerPoint and Excel. Now we don't say that. We just take that for granted. If you can't use those tools, where are you? What have you been doing? Maybe they can't use it to a mastery level. They can't use Excel pivot tables, but they can still have a good understanding of how to actually use it. So I think by using the tools, by doing that and then writing it up and logging and recording what they're doing and how they're doing it, I think is the way to ensure that feeds back into their CVs and feeds into going for job interviews later.
Thank you. And I think we've got time for just one more question. So would you please comment on if generative AI or predictive AI should be emphasized more when teaching digital marketing?
I think it should, on two bases, because predictive AI, sometimes it works, sometimes it gets it horribly wrong. Um, I think it should be emphasized in the classroom. It's being used in every aspect of digital marketing, so it should be emphasized and just embedded, stitched in there in the ways that I've mentioned earlier. But again, you declare the tools being used, state what's being used, push things back to the students, get them to do the legwork for you, and get them to do the analysis and what they liked or disliked at a basic level, or worked and what could be enhanced at a higher level.
Great, thank you. So I think that is all we have time for today. There are some other questions that unfortunately we didn't get time to get round to, but as I said, Annmarie is going to try and answer these after the event, and we will circulate those responses. So thank you everybody for your questions during the session. A reminder that you can get 25% off Annmarie's new book, Digital Marketing, third edition. So you can use the code on the screen. The slides will also be circulated to you, so you can access the QR code directly via those once you receive them. And yeah, thanks again to Annmarie for that fascinating discussion. It was a really great presentation, and I think some really insightful Q&A questions as well. So thank you all for joining, and I hope you have a lovely day.
Thank you.